in Netflix's Three-Body Problem, a new global epic about top-flight scientists whose experiments contradict 60 years of settled science. This was put out by the creators of Game of Thrones. It's got a 3-year contract. You can view it as I have. This astrophysics drama with top-flight actors doesn't shy away from raising the big ultimate question of God. And here, the Fine Arts Academy, I suggest, is quite different from the scholarly, scientific, and philosophical community where God talk is almost totally absent. You refer to John Cobb. He laments that tremendously. The Three-Body Problem mirrors St. Paul's conversing with some of Athens' top thinkers about one of their gods, an unknown God, quote, in whom we live, move, and have our being, Acts 17, the bottom of page 1. In this paper, I argue that God is Holy Spirit, rather than Jesus, God is Jesus, or God the Father, is particularly apt for demonstrating the relevance of religion to our contemporary, scientifically informed society. Today's leading secular thinkers see nature as possessing intrinsic intelligent design, lowercase there, Daniel Dennett, freedom and flow, Adrian Dijon, eusociality and altruistic genes, E.O. Wilson. But these luminaries are mum on the origin of phenomenal nature's orderly creative processes that they witness. I propose that divine spirit is the originating, pulsating dynamic behind and throughout our marvelous microscopic and cosmic universe, one that finds its culmination in us humans as created in the divine image. This essay might be called a prolegomenon. I see it as something to say beforehand, to judge before one deals with the unique claims of the gospel. How can one take seriously unique Christian, to say nothing of Adventist, truth claims if the widespread scholarly atheism isn't first addressed? Accordingly, in my initial move here, I suggest that St. Paul, in his missionary visit to Athens, points the way in how to deal with thought leaders of his era and finds common ground with them, and that's something that we should do. Second, I survey the current scientific worldview and how particularly the Christian philosopher William James deals with scientism. Then finally, my third move is to flesh out how our belief in God, particularly God as divine spirit, always at work everywhere, is a reasonable first word for us Adventists to say to our skeptical contemporaries. So I refer to Paul's speech to the Areopagus. He refers to Plato's even then famous phrase in his Timotheus, where Plato, declares that the maker and father of the world is hard to find and even harder to discuss. And in that Greco-Hebrew world, there was a lot of discussion about maker or father. Very fascinating to me. The basic importance, I suggest, of Paul's invocation of the Athenians' recognition of a Platonic God is that he claimed common ground for his own God, and whom he says he saw as the God in whom we live, move, and have our being. Let me say something about the advances in science. Paul's thinkers, they had probably the sort of view that you've seen pictures of, like I have, the flat earth with a dome studded with stars. Fast forward 1,500 years, Nicholas Copernicus, Renaissance Palamat, polymath, Catholic canon, physician, economist, diplomat, translator, classicist, mathematician, and astronomer. And then he was followed, of course, by Galileo and Newton. And this was the first of two impactful conceptual revolutions. The first, of course, scientific, and the second was philosophical, René Descartes. Together, James Livingston says, together these movements brought about a significant shift in humanity's understanding of itself and its situation in the world. Gerald referred to what we're learning about consciousness of plants. Does that impact us, our theology today? I'm suggesting it should, but does it? Early 21st century society's view of our world universe is radically different from the biblical and the Newtonian. Today, as we know, we have an idea, astronomers do, astrophysicists, that there may be literally 200 trillion billion stars. Until the mid-1920s, most scientists, not just lay people, thought that when you walked out and saw the stars, that was it. I mean, you know, little ones you could hardly see, but that was the universe. That's basically the Milky Way. And now we know that that is one of trillions of galaxies. And even space-time is now being seen as possibly an emergent quality of our universe, with quantum gravity more basic. Okay, moving on. Today we live in unsettled times, and we Adventists need to take this seriously. That's in several dimensions. But I particularly want to point you to one, and that is, most of us would think that the idea of evidence, we're an evidence-based society, but that's rather common. We know what evidence is. But it's significant that the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy online, it runs a 15,000-word entry on that topic. In simpler times, say 150 years ago, the brilliant British mathematician and philosopher William Clifford left his Anglican faith because he saw himself following the, quote, evidence. Clifford famously declared, "It's wrong always, everywhere, for everyone to believe anything upon insufficient evidence." Of course, it was William James in his famous lecture, The Will to Believe, delivered 130 years ago, that he used that as a spur to address the fact that he believed that affect plays a more primal role than does reason in our thinking. And further, one's will to believe, and that could be understood as rather the right to believe, is equally applicable to religious as it is to scientific belief, to cast the issue as an overly simple binary. Going over to page 4, James prioritizes. I've got 2 minutes. Okay. So James prioritizes affect and gives reasons why he thinks that affect is more primal. It gets things going, and then reason comes in and takes those affective ideas to logical conclusions. He doesn't, James doesn't hesitate to underscore the soft underbelly of science. Science herself consults her heart when she lays it down that the ultimate ascertainment of fact and correction of false belief are the supreme good of man. Going over to page 5, the last section on divine spirit. Okay, when it comes to what I said about James, it's not just James who was Lutheran, but supposed atheist Jonathan Haidt, in his Righteous Mind, contends that the first principle of moral psychology is intuition comes first, strategic reasoning second. And then at the bottom of 5, I talk about divine spirit. And here I give an illustration of a friend, Tom, widely read in science, philosophy, and religion, recently retired internist with a subspecialty, son of an Adventist pastor. For some time, he's been a self-described secular humanist. Doesn't have any hostility, appreciates his Adventism because of the emphasis on education, but he prefers the supposed neutrality of science. He wouldn't be opposed to believing in God, he just doesn't, he can't do it conscientiously, and he can't believe what he sees as the unbelievable. And I go on to talk about conscience and quote Ellen White on conscience from her book Education. Many of us know of that. I'm out of time. Okay. I close with the idea of divine spirit, and I'll even cut into my discussion time, which I wanted to add to, not take away from, by suggesting here on this last page that David Griffin, a student of John Cobb, he is a philosophical theologian who hazards an answer to life's big questions. The most fundamental causal principles of the universe exist naturally because inherent in the nature of things, because they exist in the very nature of God. And then I refer to, again, a longer passage from Acts 17 where it seems that Paul and he are similar. Gregory, the theologian, a Cappadocian father, says that a stone and the highest archangel are equally in God. Thomas Aquinas, God exists in everything and indeed as part of their substance or as an accident, but as the agent is present to that in which its action takes place, etc. And then a long passage from Ellen White where she says that every seed that sends up its green blade to the sunlight declares the wonder-working power of God. And then she goes on at length to expound on that. And so just my final word is that, like I began, the divine spirit is the originating, pulsating dynamic behind and throughout our marvelous microscopic and cosmic